Once upon a time, in a small dusty town where the sun was always too hot and the wind carried the smell of old rusted iron, there lived a 12-year-old girl named Kyoma. Kyoma was not like most children. She didn't wear nice shoes or eat 3 times a day. Her uniform was always torn at the edges, and her school bag had one strap hanging by threads. But even with all that, there was something special about her. Her eyes. They were big, brown, and always searching, as if she was looking for hope in a world that had forgotten her. She lived with her mother, Ngozi, and her little brother, Abuka, in a one-room shack at the far end of the town. The roof leaked whenever it rained, the door didn't close well, and the walls were thin. You could hear the neighbors whispering through them. But Kyoma never complained. She swept the floor every morning with her mother's old broom, cleaned Abuka's nose when it ran, and always made sure her mother rested after returning from hawking bitter leaf and oranges in the sun. That night, the sky was darker than usual. The moon was hidden, and the wind blew strong like something bad was coming. Inside the small room, the kerosene lamp was running low. Kyoma sat on the floor, holding her empty belly. Abuka lay beside her, fast asleep, but not before crying about how hungry he was. "Kyoma," Ngozi said softly, sitting on the low wooden bed, her voice shaking, "I'm sorry. I thought I could sell enough today, but people said they will pay tomorrow. Tomorrow that never comes." Kyoma looked up at her mother. Ngozi's eyes were red. She had walked for hours under the sun that day, shouting bitter leaf, fresh oranges, but many ignored her or said they didn't have money. She came home with just 35 naira, not even enough for pure water and gari. "It's okay, Mama," Kyoma whispered, crawling to sit near her. "You tried. You always try." "But trying doesn't fill stomachs," Ngozi said, looking away quickly so her daughter wouldn't see the tears rolling down her cheek. "Your brother cried himself to sleep because of hunger. And tomorrow, I have nothing to give." Kyoma rested her head on her mother's lap. "God will help us," she said softly. Ngozi looked down at her daughter. Her hands were dry and rough from years of hard work. Her back ached. Her knees hurt. And her heart was tired. She stood up slowly, walked to the small corner where she kept her wrapper, and tied it tightly around her waist. "Mama," Kyoma asked, looking up, "where are you going?" Ngozi smiled a small, shaky smile. "Nowhere far. Just need to breathe small. You know how this heat is. Go and lie down. I won't be long." Kyoma sat up straight. "But Mama, it's dark outside." Ngozi walked to her and cupped her face. "I'll be fine. Stay with Abuka. I'll lock the door behind me." "Do you promise?" Kyoma asked. "I promise." But that night, Ngozi did not just go out to breathe. Her feet carried her past the quiet houses, past the market stalls, and into the rich part of town where the streetlights were working and the air smelled of fried plantains and pepper soup. She passed by a small bakery with soft yellow light shining inside. The smell of fresh bread made her stomach cry out. Her eyes landed on a tray of bread cooling by the open window. She looked left. She looked right. No one was there. Her mind screamed, "Don't, don't, don't." But her heart whispered, "Your children are hungry." They cried to sleep. She reached forward, her hand shaking, and grabbed one loaf of bread. "Hey, thief! Hey you!" A man's voice cut through the night like a knife. Ngozi turned to run, but it was too late. A strong hand grabbed her arm and twisted it. "Please, please, my children are hungry," she cried, falling to her knees. But the man didn't care. More people gathered. Some shouted. Some brought out phones. One woman said, "She's always looking poor and pitiful. Now we know why." Ngozi was dragged to the station. Her cries meant nothing. Back in the house, Kyoma couldn't sleep. The night felt too quiet. She looked at the clock on the wall. It was almost midnight. Her mother was never gone this long. She stood up, peeked through the window, and waited. Nothing. She paced back and forth, then opened the door and stepped into the night barefoot. She walked toward the junction slowly, her heart pounding. Then she saw 2 policemen dragging someone into a van. Her eyes widened. Mama! It was her. Ngozi sat inside the van, handcuffed, with her head bent low. Mama! Kayoma shouted, running toward the van. One officer blocked her. Move back, girl. That's my mother. Kayoma cried, trying to squeeze past him. Ngozi looked up, eyes full of tears. Kayoma, go home. No. What happened? What did they do to you? She shouted. Ngozi could not speak. The shame was too heavy. One officer pushed Kayoma gently. We'll take care of her. She stole from a bakery. She what? Kayoma asked in a whisper, like her ears didn't want to hear it. She stole bread. That's what hungry people do, the man said as the van door closed. Kayoma stood frozen as the van drove off into the night. The wind blew again, and this time, it felt like it was laughing at her. She turned and walked back home with her head down, her body cold, her heart broken. Her little brother was still sleeping, unaware that everything had just changed. She sat on the bed and hugged her knees. The room was dark, the air was heavy, and the silence was louder than anything she had ever heard. Kayoma didn't sleep. The moment the police van drove off with her mother inside, something inside her broke. She sat on the wooden bed in their small room, hugging her knees, staring at the open door. The kerosene lamp had gone off long ago. The room was dark, except for the soft light from the moon that slipped in through the broken window. She could still hear her mother's voice in her head, the part where she said, I just want to breathe. Breathe? No. Mama didn't go out to breathe. She went out to fight for them, to fight hunger. Beside her, a booker turned in his sleep. He made a small sound, like a whimper. Kayoma wiped her face quickly. She didn't want him to wake up and find her crying. Not yet. Not like this. She stood up, walked to the door, and stared out into the empty street. The wind had calmed. The town was asleep. But Kayoma's mind was racing. What would they do to Mema? Where would they take her? Would they beat her? Would they jail her forever? She had so many questions and no one to answer them. The next morning came fast. Roosters crowed across the town. Women swept their compounds. Children ran about with buckets. Traders opened their stalls. Life was moving forward, but Kayoma stood still. She hadn't changed her clothes. Her eyes were red from crying all night. Her hair was messy. Her chest felt heavy. A booker rubbed his eyes as he woke up and looked around. Mama? He asked, yawning. Kayoma turned quickly and forced a smile. She's not back yet, she said. Where did she go? She just went out. She'll come back soon. He nodded sleepily, then scratched his belly. I'm hungry. Those words made Kayoma's stomach twist. She had no food. Nothing. Not even water. Don't worry, she said softly. I'll find something. Just wait, okay? She walked to the small plastic bag that held their coins. She opened it and counted. 10 naira. Nothing else. She bit her lower lip and looked around the room. There was nothing to sell. Nothing left to trade. Their mother had sold everything months ago. Clothes, shoes, even her wedding ring. Kayoma's eyes landed on her sandals. They were old and worn, but maybe someone in the market could give her something small for them. She slipped them off, held them in her hand, and whispered to a booker, I'll be back. Don't open the door for anyone. A booker nodded and lay back down. The market was already busy when Kayoma arrived. The smell of fried akara mixed with dust and sweat. Voices shouted prices. Buses honked. People moved like ants. Kayoma walked with her head down. Her feet burned on the hot ground. She clutched her sandals tightly. Her eyes searched for someone kind. Someone who might give her 10 or 20 naira. She stopped in front of a woman selling gari. Auntie, please, Kayoma said, her voice low. I'm hungry. My brother is at home. We haven't eaten. Can I give you these sandals for a small cup? The woman looked at her from head to toe. She frowned. These your sandals? They don't even have shape again. Please. The woman sighed and looked away. Go and beg somewhere else. You think I'm doing charity here?" Kayoma's hands dropped to her side. She turned and walked away. Her chest was tight, but she held back the tears. She tried again at another stall. And another. And another. Nobody wanted her sandals. Some ignored her. Some laughed. One man shouted, "Na barefoot you go school tomorrow." By the time the sun was high in the sky, Kayoma had given up. She sat under a wooden shed, sweating, tired, and empty. Then she heard two women talking near a fish seller's table. "You didn't hear? That woman, Ngozi, was arrested last night." "Which one?" "That poor widow. The one that sells bitter leaf and oranges." Kayoma froze. "Yes, Na. They said she stole bread." "Bread?" "Yes. From that new bakery beside Chinidu's pharmacy." The other woman laughed. "Yeah. Hunger is a real demon. But still, stealing." Kayoma stood up slowly, her legs shaking. "She's at the station now," the woman continued. "They might take her to court." "Court?" Kayoma didn't wait to hear more. She ran, barefoot, through the crowd, past the fried yam seller, past the keek drivers. She ran until her chest burned and her breath felt like fire. The police station was a small dusty building with faded paint and one broken bench outside. A fat officer sat behind a wooden table, chewing groundnuts. Kayoma pushed the gate open and entered, her heart racing. "Good morning, sir," she said, out of breath. The officer looked at her slowly. "What do you want?" "My mama. Her name is Ngozi. She was brought here last night." "Ah, the bread thief." Kayoma's face went pale. "Where is she? Please. I want to see her." "Sit down first. You can't just enter like that." Kayoma sat on the wooden bench, twisting her fingers nervously. A few minutes later, another officer came out and whispered something to the man at the table. He turned and looked at Kayoma. "They've moved her." Kayoma's eyes widened. "Way! Court? Already?" "Yes. Fast-track case. It's not a big one, but stealing is stealing." Kayoma stood up quickly. "Can I go there?" The officer shrugged. "If you know the way." She nodded and ran again. Her legs were sore. Her throat was dry. But she didn't stop. The courthouse was an old two-story building. People gathered outside, some selling snacks, some gossiping, some waiting for their own cases. Kayoma pushed through the crowd and climbed the stairs. Her heart pounded louder with every step. She reached the courtroom door and opened it quietly. It was her first time inside a courtroom. The room was big and hot. Fans turned slowly above. Wooden benches filled the space. A few people sat, talking softly. In front, she saw her mother. Ngozi was sitting on a bench beside a policeman. Her hands were cuffed. Her eyes were swollen. Her wrapper was dirty. Kayoma couldn't breathe. She walked toward her, and the policeman stood up. "You can't come here," he said. "Mama," Kayoma whispered. Ngozi turned. When their eyes met, something deep passed between them. A kind of pain no one else could feel. "Kayoma," she said, her voice barely there. Kayoma ran to her, but the officer blocked her again. "I just want to see my mother." Ngozi cried out, "Please let her." The officer sighed and stepped aside. Kayoma knelt beside her mother. "Mama, I'm here." Ngozi touched her cheek gently. "You shouldn't be here, my daughter." "I had to come. I looked for you. I asked. I ran. Kayoma's voice broke. She hugged her mother tightly. The officer cleared his throat. "Sit down, girl. The judge is coming." Kayoma looked up at her mother. "What will happen now?" "I don't know," Ngozi whispered. "They say I'll be judged. But you didn't do it to hurt anyone." "I know." Kayoma wiped her tears and held her mother's hands. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "I won't leave you." Ngozi smiled through her tears. "You're stronger than you look. I learned it from you." Suddenly, the door opened. Everyone stood. The judge was wheeled in. Kayoma turned to look. A woman in her early 40s sat in a black robe, with a white wig on her head. She was beautiful, but there was something tired in her eyes. She was pushed in by a court clerk. Her wheelchair rolled smoothly across the floor. She looked around the courtroom slowly, her face calm but firm. She tapped her gavel twice. Case number 243. State versus Ngozi Okoye. Kayoma's heart jumped. The courtroom fell silent. As the judge adjusted her seat and read the file in front of her, Kayoma stared at her in surprise. She had never seen a judge in a wheelchair before. But even without walking, this woman looked powerful, like someone who had seen pain and survived it. The trial was about to begin, and Kayoma didn't know it yet, but this very judge would change her life forever. The moment the judge's gavel struck the wooden block again, the courtroom fell into a deep, thick silence. Everyone's eyes moved from the judge to the frail woman in handcuffs, Kayoma's mother. Kayoma sat on the edge of her seat, her fingers pressed tightly together. Her heart was beating so loud she could hear it in her ears. The courtroom felt like it was spinning, like all the air had been sucked out of the room. The judge cleared her throat and spoke clearly. Ngozi Okoye, she said, you are here today under accusation of petty theft. You are said to have stolen 1 loaf of bread from Oki's bakery last night. Is that correct? Ngozi looked up. Her lips trembled. Yes, my lord. Do you admit to stealing the bread? I do, she whispered, her voice low. Kayoma felt her stomach twist. Her eyes moved from her mother to the crowd behind them. She saw some faces she recognized, women from the market, men from their street. They were whispering. Some were shaking their heads. Some were smirking. One man leaned toward another and said, not even quietly, thieves now say they're feeding children. Another woman scoffed, next thing you'll hear, someone stole yam to heal headache. Kayoma's ears burned. The judge raised her hand gently, and the whispers died down. Why did you steal the bread? The judge asked. Ngozi slowly turned her head and looked toward Kayoma. Their eyes met. My children were hungry, she said softly. They hadn't eaten all day. I tried to sell what I had in the market, but nobody bought. My son cried himself to sleep. My daughter stayed awake with an empty stomach. I went out to find anything I could, just so they wouldn't sleep hungry again. A wave of quiet moved through the room. I'm not a thief, she continued, her voice stronger now. I've worked all my life. I hawk under the sun. I clean. I wash. But last night, I had nothing. I made a mistake. I am sorry. I wasn't thinking about the law. I was thinking about my children. The judge sat quietly for a moment. Kayoma stared at her, watching her eyes, waiting for some kind of sign. A flicker of kindness, or at least understanding. But the judge's face was calm. Still. Then she looked down at her papers and said, bring in the complainant. The doors opened, and a tall, heavy-set man walked in. He wore a shiny white shirt and walked with his chest pushed out like a soldier. That was Oki, the bakery owner. Kayoma recognized him at once. He was always yelling at his workers and counting money loudly at the end of every day. He took the stand and didn't even look at Ngozi. The judge adjusted her glasses. State your name. Oki Ease, he said. You're the owner of the bakery. Yes, my lord. And what happened last night? He raised his chin. Around 11 p.m., I was checking my shop when I noticed someone creeping by the window. I watched carefully and saw this woman reaching in and taking 1 loaf of bread from the tray. He pointed at Ngozi with a stiff hand. I ran outside immediately. She tried to run, but I caught her. She begged and said she needed food. But that's not my concern. I called the police. You called them personally? Yes. I even made sure she was taken to the station. People need to learn. You can't just steal because you're poor. The judge paused. How much was the bread worth? Ours is premium bread. 1,200 naira. A few people in the courtroom chuckled. Continue, the judge said. I don't care if it's 1 naira or 1 million, Oki said loudly. If you let one thief go, Tomorrow you'll have 10. I run a business. I pay staff. I pay for flour and fuel. If people start stealing, who will feed me? He stepped back from the stand. Ngozi bowed her head again. Kayoma watched the judge closely. She was still writing something, still expressionless. Then the judge asked, "Do you have anything more to say, Madam Ngozi?" Ngozi looked up. Her lips opened but no words came. Then, quietly, she said, "If you want to punish me, punish me. But please, my children. They have no one else." Kayoma couldn't stay quiet anymore. She stood up. The courtroom gasped. The officer near her tried to stop her, but she moved fast and ran to the middle of the room. "Please," she shouted, her voice shaking. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Young girl, this is not allowed." "She's my mother," Kayoma said, her voice rising. "She's not a bad person." "Take your seat, child," the officer said, trying to grab her arm. "No, I won't go. You don't understand." "Bailiff. Please," Kayoma cried, louder this time. "Just listen to me. Just for 1 minute. Please." The courtroom was tense. Silent. The judge looked at Kayoma. Then slowly, she raised her hand, signaling the officer to stop. "Let her speak," she said. Kayoma turned to face the courtroom. Her lips were trembling. She had never spoken in front of so many people before. "I know what my mother did was wrong, but she didn't do it to hurt anyone. She did it for me. For my brother. We were hungry. She always tries to feed us. She works all day. She walks in the sun. She sells bitter leaf. She washes people's clothes." She looked at Oki. "She even sells to your wife. I followed her to your compound before." Oki frowned. Kayoma turned back to the judge. "I begged her not to go out that night, but she said she couldn't let us sleep hungry again. I was scared, and when I saw her being dragged into the van, I thought I would never see her again." She wiped her nose. "I know rules are rules. I know stealing is bad. But sometimes, when people are desperate, they do things they don't want to do." Her eyes filled with tears. "Please, don't take my mother away from me. We don't have anybody else. If you jail her, who will help us?" The room was silent. Kayoma turned to look at the judge again. "I'm not asking for pity," she whispered. "I'm asking for a chance." The judge leaned back in her chair. Her eyes had changed. They were softer now. Her fingers moved slowly across the desk. But before she could speak, someone in the crowd muttered, "This girl should win an award for acting." Then another person laughed. "Next thing, she'll say she can fly." A few chuckles echoed. Kayoma turned sharply. "She's not acting," a woman shouted from the back. "I know her. That girl helps her mother every day in the market. She's always carrying something heavy." "Is it help that stops someone from stealing?" Another voice fired back. "Let the law do its job." The judge tapped the gavel. "Order in the court." Everyone went quiet again. The judge looked at Kayoma. "What is your name?" "Kayoma." "Kayoma what?" "Kayoma Okoye." "You love your mother very much." "Yes, Ma," Kayoma said quickly. "You are brave. But you must understand, court is a place of law, not emotion." "I know." "Good." The judge looked at her for a moment longer, then said, "You may go back to your seat." Kayoma turned slowly and walked back, her legs weak. Her mother reached out and squeezed her hand gently. No words were needed. They just looked at each other. Outside the courtroom later that day, the news had already started spreading. "Did you hear what the girl said in court?" "I was there. She stood up and spoke like a lawyer. They said her mother stole bread. Can you imagine?" But the woman looked so tired, like life had beaten her. People talked. They whispered. They pointed fingers. Some laughed. Some felt sorry. As Kayoma and her mother sat quietly on the bench outside, the officer told them the judge would deliver the ruling the next morning. They had to come back. Kayoma leaned against her mother's shoulder. "Did I do the right thing?" she asked. Ngozi kissed her forehead. You did what your heart told you. That is always the right thing. Kayoma closed her eyes. She was scared, but she had no regrets. No matter what the judge decided tomorrow, she had stood for her mother. She had spoken the truth. And sometimes, in a world that didn't care much for the poor, that was the only weapon a child had. The courtroom was empty now. The noise was gone. The whispers, the mocking, the gasps, all had disappeared with the crowd. But the voice of that little girl, Kayoma, still echoed in Judge Efima's ears. Please don't take my mother away. We don't have anybody else. Judge Efima sat still at her bench. Her fingers rested on the edge of her desk. She looked ahead, but her mind was far away. The courtroom was cold, even though the fan above spun slowly. The clerk walked up to her. Ma, should I help you back to your office now? She shook her head gently. No, not yet. The clerk nodded and stepped aside. She needed a moment, or maybe more than a moment. She wheeled herself away from the bench and moved toward the window. The sunlight fell across her black robe. She rested her hand on the windowsill and looked out. Children were running across the compound. A woman was selling puff-puff under the mango tree. An officer leaned against a wall, picking his teeth. But all she could see was that girl, standing in the courtroom, crying, begging, trembling, but still speaking with the strength of 10 adults. She turned her wheelchair and stared down at her legs. They were still, lifeless. The thick feeling in her chest came back again. The one that always came whenever she remembered the day her legs stopped working. 2 years ago. It was raining heavily that night. Her car moved slowly through the water. She had just finished a long case. Her head was full, her body tired. The road was slippery, and the lights from the other cars were blinding. Then it happened. A loud crash, a sharp pain, screaming, glass shattering. Everything turned black. When she woke up in the hospital, her mother was crying beside her bed. The doctor stood at the foot of the bed with a sad look on his face. You've lost feeling from the waist down, he said. There was damage to your spine. We're sorry. She couldn't speak. At first, she believed it would pass. She thought maybe after a few weeks, or maybe a month, she'd walk again. But nothing changed. She sat in that hospital bed for weeks, staring at her legs, willing them to move. They didn't. When they finally rolled her into a wheelchair, she cried for the first time in years. She didn't cry from pain. She cried from helplessness. She had always been strong, always in control, always standing tall in courtrooms, defending the law. Now she was being pushed around like a child. She returned to work 6 months later. People looked at her differently. They smiled too much, talked too softly, treated her like glass. Some judges whispered behind her back. Why didn't she just retire? Who's she trying to impress? But she didn't care. She had lost her legs, not her mind, not her voice. She continued to judge. She continued to write her rulings. And soon, people stopped feeling sorry and started respecting her again. But even with all her strength, there were nights she cried alone in her house. Nights where she sat by her window and watched people walk by, wishing she could just feel her feet again. Even for a second. She prayed sometimes. Sometimes she didn't. She wasn't even sure if God was listening. And then today, that girl came. The next morning, she arrived early. She didn't sleep much. As her driver pushed her into the courtroom, she saw the benches already filling up again. News of the case had spread. People came not just to hear the ruling, but to see the girl who had stood up to speak for her mother. Kayoma and her mother were already there. Kayoma sat beside her mother, holding her hand tightly. Their eyes met briefly. Judge Efima looked away quickly. She rolled forward and took her seat. She opened the file. Her fingers paused on the page. The courtroom clerk tapped the gavel. Court in session. Everyone stood. Then Saturday. She cleared her throat. This is the continuation of case number 243, State versus Ngozi Okoye. She looked directly at Ngozi. I've listened to your words. I've listened to the complainant. And I've also heard from your daughter. Kyoma squeezed her mother's hand tighter. This case is not just about the law, the judge continued. It's about hunger. It's about choices. It's about what happens when people are pushed to their breaking point. There was silence. I will not pretend that stealing is right. It is not. But I also will not pretend that this court cannot show mercy. Kyoma's eyes widened. Ngozi held her breath. Therefore, Judge Efima said clearly, this court finds you guilty, but gives you a suspended sentence. You will not go to jail. Gasps filled the courtroom. Kyoma covered her mouth. You are to report to social services for 6 weeks. They will monitor your situation and help with support if needed. Tears rolled down Ngozi's cheeks. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. Kyoma stood up without thinking and shouted, God bless you, Ma. The crowd clapped lightly. Some nodded. Even Oki, the bakery owner, looked surprised but didn't speak. The judge raised her hand and silence returned. Kyoma walked to her, slowly. The officers tried to stop her again, but Judge Efima waved them off. Kyoma stood right in front of her. Everyone watched. The room was still. Kyoma looked her in the eyes and said, Thank you for saving my mother. Judge Efima nodded once. Then Kyoma said something that made the whole room freeze. Now it's my turn to save you. What do you mean? The judge asked. Kyoma dropped to her knees and placed her hands on the judge's lap. Please let me pray for you. Whispers spread across the room. What is this girl doing? She's gone mad. But Kyoma didn't move. Her voice was quiet, but strong. I know people laugh at me, but I believe in miracles. And I believe in healing. She closed her eyes. Judge Efima didn't know what to do. Her hands trembled slightly. Her throat felt dry. Kyoma whispered, You helped me when nobody else did. Now I want to help you. And before anyone could stop her, Kyoma bowed her head and began to pray. She didn't shout. She didn't speak in tongues. She just talked. God, this woman gave me my mother back. Please give her back her legs. Touch her. Help her feel again. Even if it's just a little. Show everyone that you still do wonders. Her tears fell on the judge's lap. The room was silent. No one laughed now. Not even a sound. Then Kyoma opened her eyes and looked up. And Judge Efima gasped. Her fingers had twitched. She looked down at her thighs. Something moved. Just a little. But it moved. She gripped the sides of her chair. Move again, she whispered. Her foot shifted slightly. People saw it. Someone shouted. She moved. Kyoma's eyes widened. She stepped back. The courtroom exploded. Some people screamed. Others ran forward. The officers rushed to hold the crowd back. But all Judge Efima could do was stare at her left leg, which hadn't moved in 2 years, now slowly lifting. She burst into tears. Kyoma stood in the middle of it all, staring at her in shock. I don't know what happened, she said quietly. But inside, she did. Something powerful had passed through her. And the judge knew it too. She reached out and pulled Kyoma close. You did this, she said. You're the miracle. The whole room clapped. People cried. Others knelt. Ngozi couldn't even speak. She just watched, with her hands on her chest, as her daughter stood like light in the middle of the courtroom. Later, when the crowd had cleared, and the room was quiet again, Judge Efima sat with Kyoma and her mother privately. Tell me something, the judge asked softly. Why did you really pray for me? Kyoma looked up at her. Because you looked sad. Even when you were trying to be strong. I know what that feels like. Efima wiped her eyes. And I wanted to thank you the only way I knew how, Kyoma added. By believing. The judge smiled for the first time in a long time. Then you've given me more than healing. You've given me faith again. They held hands in silence. Outside, the sun was shining. And for the first time in many years, it felt warm again. From the story, Poor Girl Tells Paralyzed Judge, Free my mom and I'll heal you, everyone laughed, until a miracle happened. The whole town was talking. From the market square to the barber's shop, from street corners to the primary school gate. Everyone had heard about the girl who stood in court and prayed for a paralyzed judge, and how the judge moved her leg for the first time in years. Some people said it was real. Some said it was a trick. Some said the girl was a prophet. Some called it madness. But nobody could stop talking. Kyoma, who used to walk through the market with her head down, was now being stopped by strangers. "Are you the girl from the court?" "Yes," she would say softly. "God used you, my daughter. Don't stop believing." Kyoma didn't know how to respond most times. All she knew was that something big had happened, and somehow, she had been part of it. At home, Mama was trying to smile again. The shame of the arrest still hung over her like a cloud, but the fear was gone. She held Kyoma and Abuka close every night now. They didn't always have food, but they had peace, and that was something. One morning, as Kyoma was washing clothes outside, she heard footsteps. She looked up. 2 police officers stood at their small wooden gate. Her heart jumped. "Mama," she called, panic in her voice. Ngozi came rushing out, tying her wrapper. "What is it?" The taller officer stepped forward. "Are you Madam Ngozi Okoye?" She nodded slowly. "You are needed in court again." Her face dropped. "Why?" she asked. "It's regarding the previous case." Kyoma stepped closer, holding her mother's hand. "What do they want again?" The officer looked serious. "It's not a bad thing, but the judge wants both of you present. It's important." Kyoma's mind started racing. Important? Was something wrong? Was it about the miracle? They left immediately. At the courthouse, the crowd was even larger than before. This time, there were reporters. Men with cameras. Women holding notepads. Microphones. Everyone wanted to know what was going on. Kyoma squeezed her mother's hand as they walked through the crowd. "Why are they here?" Ngozi asked. "I don't know," Kyoma whispered. When they entered the courtroom, it was already packed. People were standing against the walls. The front row had some important-looking men in suits. Even Oki, the bakery man, was there again, sitting with his arms crossed. Then the room fell silent. Judge Ifema entered. This time, she wheeled herself in slowly. She looked calm but focused. Her eyes scanned the room and landed on Kyoma. Kyoma gave her a small nod. The judge nodded back. She tapped the gavel once. "This court is in session. Everyone Saturday. Today is not for judgment," the judge said. "Today is for truth." Murmurs spread. She raised her hand and continued. 2 days ago, something happened in this courtroom that many of you witnessed. A young girl knelt down here and prayed for me. And I, a woman who has been paralyzed for 2 years, moved my leg. People gasped softly. Some called it fake. Some said it was luck. Some said it was not possible. She paused and looked straight at the crowd. "I am here to tell you, it happened. And I felt it." She turned to Kyoma. "Kyoma, please come forward." Kyoma's legs shook as she walked to the center of the courtroom. She stood in front of the judge, eyes wide, hands by her side. "Don't be afraid," the judge said gently. Kyoma nodded. The judge continued, "Today, I want the world to know that sometimes, the strongest things don't come from the powerful. They come from the humble. From faith." She looked at her clerk and whispered something. The clerk nodded and turned to the side door. A doctor entered the courtroom. He wore a white coat and had a file in his hand. "This is Dr. Benson," the judge explained. "He has been my doctor since the accident." Dr. Benson stepped forward and faced the court. "I ran tests on the judge yesterday," he said, "and I was shocked by the results." He opened his file. There is clear nerve movement in her left leg. Something we've not seen since the accident. It's real. It's not acting. It's not imagination. The room went silent. "I don't know how to explain it," he added. "But something has changed in her body." People began murmuring again. One man whispered, "Maybe the girl really healed her." Another woman said, "God is still God." But someone stood up in the back. It was a lawyer. Kyoma had seen him once during her mother's hearing. "This is all dramatic," he said loudly. "This is not how courts should be run. Bringing in children to pray? Is this a church?" Judge Ephema looked at him calmly. "This is still my courtroom." "Yes, but—" She raised her hand, stopping him. "I understand your concern. And you're right. A courtroom must follow the law. But we must not ignore what we see with our eyes and feel with our hearts." Kyoma looked at the man. He stared back, then slowly sat down. The judge turned to Kyoma again. "Why did you pray for me, Kyoma? Tell them." Kyoma cleared her throat. She looked around at the faces staring at her. Her voice was small at first. "Because you listened to me." Everyone leaned closer. "I've never been listened to before. Not by people in power. But you did. You saved my mother. You showed mercy. And I just wanted to give something back." The judge blinked. Kyoma continued, her voice stronger now. "I'm not a healer. I don't know magic. I only have faith. I believed something good could happen. And I asked God for it." She looked down, then added quietly, "That's all." The judge looked at her for a long time. Then she placed her hand on Kyoma's. "You gave me hope," she said softly. "And that's more powerful than anything." Someone in the back started clapping. Then another. And soon, the whole room was filled with applause. The judge tapped her gavel. But even she was smiling now. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Reporters rushed forward. "Kyoma! Kyoma! How did you do it? What did you say in your prayer? Are you gifted?" Kyoma held her mother's hand tightly. "I didn't do anything special," she told them. "I just believed." That evening, back in their room, Kyoma sat on the floor, peeling Gary into a bowl. Her mother stirred the pot of soup over their small charcoal stove. There was peace again. "Mama?" Kyoma asked. "Yes. Do you think the judge will walk again?" Ngozi paused, then smiled. "I think she already has. Maybe not fully, but something inside her has stood up again." Kyoma smiled too. A booker ran in from outside, shouting, "Mama! Kyoma! The judge is on the radio." They turned up the volume on their small radio set. It was her voice. Sometimes, miracles don't begin with a church. Sometimes, they begin with a child in a courtroom. The radio kept playing Judge Ephema's voice on repeat. Even the announcer could hardly believe it. This story is still shaking our town. A young girl, Kyoma Okoye, knelt in court and prayed for Judge Ephema, who has been paralyzed for 2 years. And right there, in front of everyone, the judge moved her leg. Doctors confirmed the movement. Is this science? Or a miracle? Kyoma stared at the small radio, not blinking. "Mama, that's her voice," she whispered. Ngozi stirred the pot slowly, her face thoughtful. "Yes, that's her." They listened as the judge's voice came back on. "I don't know what to call it," the judge said over the air. "All I know is, something changed that day. And I believe that child was sent to remind us what faith and mercy can do." Ngozi sat beside her daughter. She placed a hand on Kyoma's back. "You've done something big," she said softly. "And not just for me." Kyoma looked down. "I don't feel big." "You don't have to feel it. You just have to be it. And you are." The room went quiet again. Then a knock came at the door. Kyoma stood quickly. "Who is it?" "Open," a deep voice said. Ngozi moved fast and peeked through the small curtain. 2 men stood outside, well-dressed. One held a file. The other wore a long-sleeved shirt and glasses. She opened the door slowly. "Good evening," the man with glasses said, smiling politely. "Are you Madam Ngozi Okoye?" "Yes." "This is your daughter, Kyoma." Kyoma stepped forward shyly. "Yes." He reached into his shirt pocket and brought out an ID card. "I'm Mr. Dyke. I work with the Ministry of Women and Children Affairs. We came on behalf of the judge." Kyoma blinked. "Judge Ephema?" "Yes. She sent us." She has something she wants to offer your daughter. Ngozi looked confused. Offer? Mr. Dyke nodded, serious now. She wants to sponsor Kyoma. Education. Care. Everything. She wants to take her in. Kyoma froze. Take me in? She asked. Not forcefully, Mr. Dyke said quickly. Only if your mother agrees. It will be legal and clear. The judge says your daughter deserves more than life is giving her right now. Kyoma turned to her mother. Mama. Ngozi's face was unreadable. The other man handed her a file. There's a form. Just to show interest. We'll return in 2 days. Then they bowed and left. Kyoma and her mother stood by the door, staring after them. The street was quiet. Only the crickets spoke. That night, sleep did not come easy. Kyoma lay on the mat with her eyes wide open. The lantern flickered beside them. Mama, she whispered. Yes. Do you want me to go? Ngozi turned her head. I don't know. They were quiet for a while. Then Ngozi said, you would have your own bed, your own books, maybe even 3 meals every day. Kyoma's throat felt tight. But I would not have you. Ngozi closed her eyes. You would be safe. You would be okay. And maybe that's more than I can give right now. But I don't want rich things. I want you and a booker. Ngozi smiled softly in the dark. You may not understand now, but sometimes, love means letting go. Kyoma turned her back to the lantern and tried not to cry. The next morning, the town was buzzing again. People crowded the small junction near their house. Some brought newspapers. Some had radios on loudspeaker. Kyoma's name was on the front page now. Big letters, little girl, big faith. Another headline read, Judge offers a new life to the girl who prayed for her. A third one shouted, Is Kyoma a gifted child? Men in suits passed by, pointing. That's her house. She's just a small girl. But her mouth moved heaven. Ngozi shut the door. This is getting out of hand, she said quietly. But it wasn't stopping. Later that day, Judge Efima herself arrived. Not in her court robe. Not with police. Just her, in a dark green wrapper and blouse, sitting in the back of a black car. She knocked softly on the wooden gate. Kyoma opened it and gasped. Judge! Call me Auntie Efima today, the woman said, smiling gently. May I come in? Kyoma ran to get her mother. Minutes later, the judge sat on their plastic chair inside the room. She looked around without judgment. She touched the wooden wall gently and said, You keep it clean. Ngozi nodded. We try. Kyoma stood in the corner, nervous. Judge Efima turned to her. Kyoma, I didn't send those men to pressure you. I know. I only sent them because I want to give you more. You deserve more. You gave me something I had stopped asking for. Hope. Kyoma sat on the edge of the bed. The judge looked at Ngozi. I want her to live with me. I'll send her to the best schools. I'll raise her like my own. But I need your blessing. Ngozi didn't answer right away. Her eyes were full. My daughter has saved me more times than I can count, she said. She's my light. The judge nodded. Then let me help her shine brighter. Kyoma looked from one woman to the other. Can I ask something? She said softly. Of course, the judge replied. Can I come and visit every week? The judge smiled wide. Yes, every week. You'll never forget your family. I'll make sure of it. Ngozi stood up, walked to her daughter, and hugged her tightly. My sweet girl, she whispered. Your road is opening. Walk through it. Kyoma didn't say a word. She just cried into her mother's chest. 2 days later, the small compound was full of neighbors. Some cried. Some clapped. Kyoma wore a clean dress the judge had brought. Her hair was packed neatly in 2 big puffs. She carried a small bag. Not because she had many clothes, but because it was all she owned. A booker stood beside her, sniffling. Will you come back? I promise. Every Sunday. Yes. Don't forget me. Never. They hugged tightly. Then Kyoma turned to her mother one last time. Ngozi bent down and held her face. "You are still my child. That will never change." Then she kissed her forehead and stepped back. The judge opened the car door. Kyoma got in. As the car drove off, she waved through the window. Her eyes were wet, but her heart was strong. She wasn't sure where the road would lead, but she knew who she was, and that was enough. Kyoma sat quietly in the backseat of the judge's car, her hands holding tightly onto her small bag. She tried to look outside the window, but everything felt blurry. She wasn't sure if it was from the speed of the car or the tears hiding behind her eyes. She had said goodbye to her mother. She had hugged Ibuka. She had smiled for the neighbors. She had done everything she was supposed to do. But inside, she felt like someone had removed something from her chest and left a hole. Judge Ifema looked back from the front seat. "You okay?" she asked gently. Kyoma nodded slowly. "Yes, Ma." "You don't have to call me Ma every time," the judge said, smiling. "You can call me Auntie Ifema, remember?" Kyoma forced a small smile. "Okay, Auntie Ifema." The judge reached for her hand and gave it a small squeeze. "You're safe now, and you're not alone." Kyoma nodded again, but she didn't speak. She just looked back out the window and watched the streets she knew disappear behind her. When they reached the judge's house, Kyoma couldn't believe her eyes. It was a big cream-colored house with a red roof and flowers everywhere. The compound was clean, the walls were painted fresh, and there was even a gate that opened by remote. Kyoma's heart started to beat faster. She stepped out slowly and looked around. "Come, let me show you inside," the judge said, already wheeling herself toward the door. Inside, the house smelled like vanilla. The floors were tiled and shiny. The living room was filled with soft chairs, a big TV, and framed pictures on the walls. Everything looked new and beautiful. Kyoma's mouth opened slightly. "Is this all yours?" "Yes," Judge Ifema replied. "And now, it's yours too." They walked, or rather rolled and followed, into a small room at the end of the hall. "This will be your room," the judge said. Kyoma stepped inside. It had a bed with pink bedsheets, a small desk, a shelf for books, and even a teddy bear sitting on the pillow. She had never had a room of her own. Not ever. She dropped her small bag on the bed and stood still. "Do you like it?" the judge asked. Kyoma nodded. "It's very nice." The judge smiled. "If you need anything, let me know." She turned her wheelchair to leave but paused. "Oh, and tomorrow, we'll go shopping for school things." Kyoma's eyes widened. "School?" "Yes. You'll start next week. A good one." Kyoma didn't know what to say. She just watched as the judge rolled away, leaving her alone in the beautiful room. Later that night, Kyoma lay in the soft bed, staring at the ceiling. The room was quiet. Too quiet. She missed the sound of Ibuka breathing beside her. She missed Mama whispering prayers before sleep. She missed the cracked ceiling back home and the creaky door that never shut properly. She turned to the teddy bear and hugged it, but it didn't feel the same. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but her heart felt too heavy. The next morning, the judge knocked gently on the door. "Kyoma." "Yes, Ma," Kyoma said, sitting up. "Come and eat breakfast." She came out slowly. The dining table had yam and eggs, bread, and tea. It was too much food for two people. The judge noticed her staring. "Eat, my dear. You need your strength." Kyoma took small bites. The judge watched her. "I hope you're settling in well." "I'm trying," Kyoma said quietly. "You can always talk to me." Kyoma nodded, but didn't lift her eyes. That day, they went to a shop where Kyoma got new shoes, socks, school uniforms, books, a school bag, and even hair ribbons. The shopkeeper said, "Auntie, this your daughter is lucky-o." The judge smiled proudly. "She's not lucky. She's blessed." Kyoma felt warm hearing that. But inside, she still missed home. The first few days in the house were quiet. Kyoma did everything she was told. She cleaned her room, said thank you after every meal, and tried not to disturb anyone. But sometimes, she would go to the window and just stare outside, thinking about her mother and Ibuka. One evening, as the judge read a book in the living room, she looked up and saw Kayoma sitting alone by the window. "Come," she said gently. Kayoma came over and sat beside her. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. You don't have to be strong every second." Kayoma looked down. The judge put down her book. "Let me tell you something," she said. "After my accident, I stopped believing anything good could happen to me. I stopped praying. I stopped hoping." Kayoma listened. "But then you came," the judge continued. "You, with your big eyes and brave voice. You reminded me that miracles can happen." Kayoma's eyes watered. "But now I'm here," she whispered, "and I don't feel like a miracle." The judge reached out and held her hand. "You're just missing home. That's normal. It doesn't mean you don't belong here." Kayoma nodded slowly. Then she asked, "Can I call Mema?" "Of course." The next morning, the judge handed her a small phone. "You can use this anytime." Kayoma pressed the number and waited. "Mama." "Kayoma. Oh my baby, how are you?" Tears came instantly. "I miss you." "I miss you too, but I'm so proud of you." "Is Ibuka okay?" "He's doing fine. He asks about you every morning." Kayoma wiped her eyes. "Judge gave me a phone." "Then use it to call me anytime, my daughter." "I will." They stayed on the call for almost 20 minutes, laughing, crying, talking. When Kayoma hung up, she felt lighter. That weekend, they went to visit. Kayoma ran into her mother's arms. Ibuka jumped on her like a puppy. They ate jollof rice and played outside. The neighbors came to greet her. "Big girl now. You look fresh. You're glowing oh." But all Kayoma cared about was being in her mother's arms. The judge watched from a distance. She smiled, but something in her heart was also tugging. Later that evening, when it was time to leave, Kayoma cried again. "I don't want to go." "I know," Mama said softly, "but you must. You're growing, and we're cheering for you." Kayoma nodded and hugged Ibuka one last time. "I'll come again soon," she promised. And she meant it. Back at the judge's house, the room didn't feel so strange anymore. She placed a photo of her family by the bedside. She called them every night. She started arranging her books. She helped the judge sort her papers. She began to smile more. The empty space in her heart was slowly filling. Not because she forgot home, but because she was learning that she could carry home in her heart, wherever she went. The courtroom was quiet. Too quiet. It had been almost 3 weeks since Kayoma prayed for Judge Efima in front of the crowd. 3 weeks since the judge's leg moved for the first time in 2 years. The news had spread far beyond their small town. People from other towns, even from the city, had come just to sit inside the courtroom where it happened. Some wanted to see the girl. Some wanted to see the judge. But most wanted to see if it would happen again. The judge had called for a special court hearing. No one knew why. No case was being tried that day. No criminal was in the dock. No lawyer stood by their client. Yet every seat in the courtroom was full. And Kayoma sat quietly in the front row, wearing her school uniform. She looked around nervously. "Mama," she whispered, "why is everyone staring at me?" Ngozi, who sat beside her, leaned in and said, "Because you're the reason we're all here." Ibuka clapped his small hands excitedly and said, "Is the judge going to walk today?" Kayoma didn't know how to answer. She looked up just as the door at the back of the courtroom opened. Everyone turned, and Judge Efima wheeled herself into the room. People began to whisper. She was not wearing her robe. She wasn't wearing her white wig either. She wore a simple dark blue gown and flat shoes. But her face was glowing. Her assistant pushed her to the middle of the room, then stepped away. She looked around the courtroom slowly. Her eyes rested on Kayoma. Then she spoke. "Good morning, everyone." The room answered together, "Good morning." She nodded and continued. 3 weeks ago, in this courtroom, something happened. A young girl, Kayoma Okoye, stood here and prayed for me. That day, my leg moved. There was silence. She pointed to the clerk. Please bring the chair. The clerk brought a tall wooden chair and placed it beside her wheelchair. Judge Efima took a deep breath. And then, she grabbed both sides of her wheelchair. And slowly, she stood up. The room gasped. One woman shouted, "Jesus!" A man dropped his phone in shock. Kayoma stood from her seat, her mouth wide open. "Mama!" she cried. "She's standing." Judge Efima took one small step, then another. Her knees wobbled, but she didn't fall. Tears ran down her face as she gripped the chair beside her. She looked at everyone. "You all saw me in this chair for 2 years. You all know what happened." People nodded, some crying already. She continued, "But something changed. This little girl gave me more than a prayer. She gave me faith. She gave me courage to try again." She paused, breathing carefully. "Today, I stand not because my legs are strong, but because I believed again." The crowd clapped and clapped. Even the officers near the door were wiping their eyes. She raised her hand to silence them. "I have called you all here for another reason." The crowd listened. She turned to Kayoma. "Come forward." Kayoma stepped out slowly, shaking. Her shoes tapped lightly on the tiled floor as she walked to the front of the courtroom. She stood before the judge. The judge looked down at her, smiling through her tears. "You are the reason I'm standing. And today, I want to stand for you." Kayoma blinked. "Mao." Judge Efima nodded. "I want the world to know what you've done. Not just for me, but for everyone watching. You reminded us that kindness still matters. That mercy can change lives." She turned to the audience. "I have spoken with Kayoma's mother, with the ministry, and with the state governor himself." People began to whisper again. The judge raised her voice. "We are starting a foundation." Gasps filled the room. "A foundation in Kayoma's name," the judge announced. "To support children from poor homes, to feed the hungry, to educate those who cannot afford school, to give hope to the forgotten." The whole room stood and clapped. Even the journalists forgot to take notes. Kayoma stared at the judge in shock. "You named it after me." "Yes," the judge said proudly. "It's called the Kayoma Hope Foundation." Kayoma's hands shook. She turned to look at her mother. Ngozi had both hands covering her mouth. Abuka shouted, "Kayoma has a foundation." The judge held Kayoma's hands. "From now on, you will speak for children like you. You will help us find them. You will visit schools, markets, hospitals. You will remind everyone that miracles are not just for the lucky. They are for the brave." Kayoma burst into tears. "I'm just a small girl," she whispered. "And I was just a woman in a wheelchair," the judge replied. "But here we are." She turned back to the audience. "I am no longer just a judge. Today, I am a witness. And I will walk with this child until the world hears her story." The courtroom shook with applause. People clapped. Some danced. The press rushed forward with cameras. One reporter asked, "Kayoma, how do you feel?" Kayoma looked up, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I feel full," she said. "I used to be hungry all the time, not just for food, but for love, for peace, for help. Now, I want to help others feel full too." That evening, the news spread again. It wasn't just about a miracle anymore. It was about a movement. Weeks passed. Kayoma's face was on posters across the state. She was invited to speak at a primary school. She stood on a small stage in front of students in dirty uniforms. She held the mic with both hands and said, "I used to sleep on a mat with a leaking roof over my head. I used to wake up hungry. I used to think no one cared. But someone did. And now, I want to care too." The children clapped. Some teachers cried. Months later, the foundation opened a small feeding center. Kayoma cut the ribbon. Ngozi and Abuka stood beside her. Judge Efima was on crutches now. She had stopped using the wheelchair most days. She stood proudly, her hand resting gently on Kayoma's shoulder. That day, they fed over 50 children, and gave out books, shoes, and hope. One evening, as the sun was going down, Kayoma sat in her room, the same pink room in the judge's house. She held the old teddy bear she had hugged on her first night there. She looked at the photo of her family on the table. She smiled. Then she stood, walked to the mirror, and whispered to her reflection. Miracles don't always come with lightning and thunder. Sometimes, they come with a prayer and a little girl's voice. She picked up her school bag and walked out to face the world again.